Okay, challenge is over. This is the wrap up. This video is gonna be, guess what was in the title? 5 things I either got right or wrong about 2.5, because I have played, it's funny, I was looking at my 2.5 stats before the challenge started. Not many hours in my life, under 100, but played 2.5 in 8 states, which is a hilarious amount of states for how few hours it's been. But anyway, play occasionally, and also just in the room, like I'm next to a 2.5 table. I hear the raise sizes, I hear the conversations or lack of conversations. So just being in the room, I know some things. People who play, I talk to them. I know some things from word of mouth. So some things I got right, some things I got wrong. 5 things in total. The first 2 things I got right. 1, how few games there are. I mean, there's some cities where there just aren't 2.5 games. For this was in Vegas. I was in San Diego for that one day. But yeah, there was that day I wanted to play Red Rock, they didn't have one going. Wanted to play South Point, they didn't have one going. Czech Resorts World, there were no games going at all. Caesars doesn't exist anymore. They did have one usually per day. If you want to go to a room in Vegas that has at least 2.5 games every single day, it's Aria, Bellagio, and Wynn. For now, Venetian in the old room, it was often like 1, and my prediction would be by like mid-January, it's back to the same. For now, Venetian also, so we could say like 4 for now, but probably 3 in the future and 3 in the recent past. 16 rooms still in the city, the Vegas metropolitan area, and you have like 3 choices if you really want to play 2.5, so not a ton of games to pick from. I wanted to give you more of a diverse look at the rooms and not just go to Wynn and Bell, but that's what ended up happening in the 2.5 hours. Second thing is how quiet it is. That day 2, the first time I played Bellagio, that game was good. I took a break, I went to the slot machines and I filmed a scene, and I said, you know, this game has been good, better than I expected. And it was also the day I was counting Ray's multi-weight pots, and you'll see if you are Patreon member and you see the newsletter that comes out in September, how many Ray's multi-weight pots there were. Way more than I expected. That table was fun. Very social. Guy on my right, well, he changed seats, but 2 different guys. A guy who was on my right at one point, he left, and then a guy changed seats. He was on my right, the next person to sit in that seat. Very social. The 2 most social guys in the game were right next to me, so I was having a good time. But plenty of times where I was just playing in silence, which, whether or not it makes a difference for like the average pot size, or you know how many all-ins are like available for you to win, that's one thing. I just don't enjoy playing in that type of environment, so that's why. I mean, it happens in 1 too, but it happened like often. It happened often in 2.5, especially at the Wynn. It was like very normal for no one to be saying a word at the Wynn. 3 things I got wrong though. 1, great transition goes to the result of the lack of conversations at the table. At 1-2, when it's really quiet, I'm often like worried people are gonna leave, and that's not just that's not great for the long-term interest of the player pool, like people having a bad time and not wanting to play the next day or their next trip to Vegas. So I often feel like a need to like start and continue conversations like all day to like keep people entertained. At 2.5, if people were quiet, which happened plenty, they were there to play. Like when they left, they didn't leave because the table wasn't social. So I didn't feel like I needed to start conversations to like keep the table together, or like to keep people in the player pool long term. So that was nice. Even though I prefer having some chatter, I didn't feel like it was like destroying the fabric of what was going on that day, or like long term at the 2.5 tables. A second thing was the game doesn't play. A lot of streets aren't really that different in terms of sizing. So pre-flop, a lot of raises are 15 or 20, which is the same in a good 1-2 game. Plenty of bad 1-2 games where, you know, the common raise is like to $8 pre-flop. Good games, yeah, 15, 20. There was a game once, a 1-3 game in Council Bluffs. I do not remember one hand all night where you could see the flop for cheaper than $25. So in a good 1-2 game, it's the same thing, 15 to 20 pre. Also, because people love down betting so much, the flop bets aren't that different either. A lot of flop bets were $15 or $20. So until the turn, the game didn't really play all that differently. Yeah, the blinds are bigger, but what it cost to get to a flop, about the same. What it cost on the flop to get to the turn, about the same. I will say, well, won't give it away, I did track pre-flop race size for a while. That's also in the keep track week portion of September's newsletter. But yeah, it was not as big as I thought. I thought there would be like way more like raises, like no straddle, no limps, just way more raises to like 25 to 35. That wasn't really happening so much. There were even raises to 15 over limp sometimes. It was playing very similar to a good 1-2 game on pre-flop and the flop streets. On turns and rivers, the betting increased a different way. In 1-2, often people just like try to increase the size in absolute terms. 15 pre-flop, 20 on the flop, 30 on the turn, 45 on the river. The absolute number goes up a little. In the 2-5 game, you could tell a lot of people are thinking in terms of a portion of the pot. So once it gets to the turn, they're betting like half pot to 3/4 pot. On the river, like half pot to 3/4 pot a lot. So the turn bets are way bigger than in 1-2. The river bets are way bigger than in 1-2. And people are just deeper in general. But flop and pre-flop, which is, you know, every hand has to have pre-flop. Not every hand, you know, has a river. So a lot of the streets were very similar sizing to 1-2. I didn't expect that. Third thing I got wrong was, this is difficult to articulate, but like, okay, think about all the like small to medium pots, or all the pots you're gonna win without showdown in a session. Like, you know, if you're gonna like chase one draw but rep the other when it comes in, and, you know, win without showdown, you're gonna like bet the river or raise the river and try to win without showdown. Like, okay, like whatever, you have that plan, okay. You might have that plan, like you might think, oh, this is the city, the time of day, the time of year, the lineup, these specific players where I need to do that a lot, or it's better not to do that much. Like, your small to medium pots and your bluffs like really change depending on the people. If it's like Super Bowl weekend or like a typical Wednesday, if it's like 3 a.m. or 3 p.m., things like that. But your strongest hands that you're gonna make all session, like you have aces or kings pre, or you flop top boat, like everything goes out the window. You just want to play a big pot. Like, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, it doesn't matter who your opponent is. Like, those hands, you just want the pot to get as big as possible because they're unbeatable hands. I'm actually, the last few years, I've been very worried. Like, at 1-2, I'm like, okay, all the other hands, whatever, they'll happen. I'm prepared to do them as little or as much as I think is necessary this session, but whatever. That's that. Like, I'm worried I'm gonna hit kings full and there's just gonna be no pot. There's gonna be no action because the games around here have gotten so tight. I was not worried in the least in the 2-5 games because the pots were there. Like, I felt confident, like, all right, like at some point I'm gonna hit a full house. I'm confident the pot will be like a very solid size, and I'll do my best to make it even a little bigger than that. Like, I wasn't worried that like everyone's first thought was going to be like, there are a lot of reasons I should fold this hand pre-flop. There are a lot of reasons I should fold this hand on the flop. A lot more people playing a lot more hands and playing them a lot more aggressively, which definitely comes with its difficulties to play back at, but not worried in the least that like my strong hands would go to waste because there was a lack of action. So that was nice to know. So there, 3, even though one thing was kind of in both categories. 2 things that I was correct about, 3 things that I was incorrect about, and probably play a little more 2-5. It's been very little. It's been like once or twice a year lately. It was a little more back in like 17, 18, 19. And tomorrow, a lot of new subscribers. People asking about profit loss numbers. I don't give daily results, although I do give a huge amount of results. Every trip gets results when it's over. Every challenge gets results when it's over. For this challenge, it is tomorrow. That video with all the hours and all the profit loss numbers. And also very early in the channel, I'll make it the end screen video. I gave all my stats when I hit 10,000 hours, which was like a month or 6 weeks after I started the channel. I played 10,000 hours live, gave every stat for all 10,000 hours. And remember, rice is a spoon food.